Hello, welcome back. I think I got the technical difficulty fixed, so we'll either edit this on to the end of the other video, or I'll just run a third installment, if you will, on the apples. But I want to switch back over, and if you're just joining me and you missed installment 1 and 2, they're right down there. So watch the first one. We set up the apples, kind of our underpainting, let it start drying up. We came back, and now we're really at the finishing touches of our composition. And I had a camera freeze up. Awesome, right? But I'm treating this as if it's a live shot, so we'll be doing those before long. And when you're live, you just got to kind of go with it and work things out. But that's no big deal. So I'm going to switch back to this camera so you can see what I've done. Now, I've lifted this guy out off my easel just a little bit. I'm taking my palette, everything that's on my palette in dirty greens, let's shift there real quick, and I'm picking it up into my big brush. Alrighty, so it's kind of a toned green. There was a little bit of red there. I did add some white to it, and what I am doing is I'm going, like, taking my brush across my canvas at certain angles. Right now I'm going linear like this. I really love that look. I don't want to take it everywhere, you know, all the way across the whole thing. So let me zoom out, so because you got to be able to see it in perspective to make sure, you know, you don't get too much. Okay, this is the kind of thing I'll do just to kind of soften my edges if I got a little wacky with a lot of the linear stuff. So I'll just take and come in and soften everything up. And you know, my apples are still kind of drying. That is a little too strong, so I just add a little white to it and walk it out. Scrub it out on the canvas, you know, very casual. And to do stuff like this, I don't know, it's just so freeing. And if you want, if that's getting a little too linear as well, you can take it back the other way. Just scrub and enjoy the freedom, okay? And I'll come back in this way. Sometimes I create some really cool background colors coming in like this, but that's how I kind of go about creating a background. And I get a lot of comments and compliments on backgrounds about, oh, I would have never thought to do it. And, you know, I hate to tell you sometimes, you know, I just kind of go with my painting and how it feels and what it's doing. So right now, I'm just trying to get rid of a few of those lines. Looks like it's picking up heavily on the camera. There we go. And by putting in some soft greens, okay? Now, you don't have to do it, put this everywhere. And you don't have to cover everything when you're doing this. You can come in and just add some stems. We can have this kind of walk out into here so that the color is there and exists, so it carries. And maybe I need to, since I'm going linear that way, maybe I'll just kind of strike my brush a few times going that way as well around it. And I'll step back from it. I'll have to step back and look at it, okay? But I really, really like that look. It's kind of one of those things that, you know, it's happening there on the canvas. Now that I did that, though, I am going to need to go back in and re-establish my branch just a little bit. I like the way it fades out up here, so I'm going to come in and I am just going to, and I have to stand up a little bit because I'd like to see what I'm doing. I like to see it from a distance. And I'm going to try to get some dark and some value exchange, some contrast. So we'll have a little bit of contrast right here, and that's thick paint coming in. I'm also trying to make sure I don't step in front of the camera because you don't need to see that. So, and I will take and just, you know, reestablish some of my branches. I can take and fade them out with my finger because remember I just put some wet background on that. And the idea now is as you do this, don't get too much, okay? Knowing when to stop and where to stop is always a problem. I don't know that I want that line going straight, you know, across my canvas the whole way, so maybe I'll start rounding a little bit. I'll let some stuff drop down. I'll have to step back from it and give it a, you know, a look afterwards, but maybe I can put in just a little impression of some greenery. And that kind of did a linear thing happening right there, so I'll just soften it out. It's no big deal. I can give you the idea, maybe there's a leaf there, and maybe there's a ghost leaf up in here somewhere. I might need something there, so I can pick up just a little bit of a contrasting, maybe a green. Maybe it needs, yeah, and just give something, all right? Something. I don't want it to look linear. I do end up lining everything up, though. I do that with the best. So, and I recognize my shortcomings, if you will, so that's okay. I have habits. We all have habits, don't we? Yeah. So I'm going to come in and just, I'm just kind of working these. And what I'll do is after I finish the painting with you, I will go back and probably, fix some of those things and add them and then post a picture of the completed piece so you can see it. I'm going to scrub some of that out. I feel like I got a little bit too many lines happening down there. So, so I can come back in and, my signature will happen down here someplace, but that's okay. So when we were talking, we were working on the reflective lights on the apples, if you will, and then we were also getting down to finishing up some highlights and pushing things behind the other, that kind of thing. So then the camera froze up. So I'm going to try to finish that up for you, and some of this I'll probably go back and add a few details, off camera, and then I'll post the final piece. But I do think I want to soften this leaf a little bit. Just remember I had that one really, really thick when we were painting together. Sometimes I have a lot of texture, but it's not that the texture, it's sometimes that I have a little bit too much detail, and it draws your eye away from what your focal is. And if you have texture moving around too much and it's drawing your eye away from the focus, what this is about is the apple, then you got to remove some of that texture. So no big deal. I just take and remove some of it. Okay. Now I'm looking at this apple, and what I'm thinking is that I want to add some reflective lights and some reflective things happening on the edge. I also was working on trying to establish a little bit stronger highlight when the camera decided to freeze on us. So let me come in with my white, and I think I want to just kind of, that's a little strong right there, but that's okay. I'll look back and see I can soften that with my finger, but I do like a little bit of that. And I feel like I need just a little bit of something happening. I might have to bridge a little, something happening over this way. If this is just a little bit too much, tapped in, got a little too much texture, if you will, you can come in and add, tap some of it out and smooth it out just a little bit. I do think I want some reds over here, and I'm going to smooth them out, but I just want it to be a little redder and a little less pink. So I'm just going to take my finger and tap that in. And I'm wondering if this guy, and all I'm doing is looking for the movement of everything on my painting. He could probably stand a little more of a highlight, but not as white as this one. I also don't want your eye to completely go to that apple. I feel like I do, though, need a little bit of strength in his stem coming out there, if you will. Let's see, maybe, and I may have to let this tack up and do a little bit more, just a little bit finessing and final stuff, off camera. And I'm looking at some of those stems that are up top, and I can get some texture happening. Now, I believe I'm ready to come in with a little bit of the, just a little reflective around those edges. And so now I have to decide, do I want that to be in a blue? Do I want that to have a little bit of a lavender touch? What do I want? I will probably pull down a little bit of Dioxazine purple and a little bit of red violet. So somewhere in here, and this will be a really intense color, and you can't really see the color on the palette. So you can see color sometimes when you add white to it. It tones it a little, but this is a very intense purple. Now that's going to look a little strong on my painting, so I'm going to want to tone that a little bit. And the opposite of violet or purple on the color wheel is yellow. So if I tone that with some of this yellow, I can really, add some of that yellow. I can really get a nice, pretty, it looks kind of like a warm violet. If you want to cool it just a little bit, you could add a little bit of blue to it, and I could pull cerulean into that, and I would be able to, cool it down a little bit. So I'm going to take this violet and I'm just going to kind of strike it on the edge of my apple just for a little cool touch. Now that I did that, whenever you do something like that and you create a color, you really have to move it, okay? So I may just tap in here just a little so it's almost, you kind of see it, okay? We don't see too much of it. I've created a cool color now, so where else I need to move the color? So this coolness, I'm going to pinch wipe, this coolness might be really pretty just in a few areas, okay? Not too much where it starts looking psychedelic. And if you get too much, just kind of warm it back up or take it back out with a little brown. Take your finger, I'm not wanting it strong, take your finger and wipe it out just a little bit, okay? I really feel that we need to have some cool green. So if I'm going to have these reflective lights and I've got this warm apple and I have all warm leaves, I really need to have some temperature exchange with my leaves. And I never really went in. I only put the reflective light, I'm looking at my piece, I only put the reflective light of blue or a cool reflective on my leaves. So I kind of feel like I need to go back and add a little bit of coolness to my leaves. So to do that, I can come in, my favorite thing to do is to come in with black and yellow. And remember I told you black and Hansa in this line will make a really pretty green, okay? Now I can go in and pull in a little phthalo, and I like to come in with phthalo that has black in it, and that will cool down. I'm not real sure if this is going to be enough of a cool over on my piece for me to be able to see it in my leaves. And it's not going to be cool enough. So what I can do is I can also, there's a really pretty color called Phthalo Blue Green, and I have been using that a lot. Now that is a very intense green. It's an intense blue green, which means if I add a little bit of orange, which would be like Naphthol red light to it, it'll tone it down. So I could probably take this color into some of my leaves and give me some temperature exchange, which is something obviously that the piece is lacking. So, you know, you have to do these evaluations. You have to have some temperature exchange. You have to have some lights and darks. You have to have textures, just all kinds of things. So, you know, it's the basics of our painting, okay? Now, I'm going to pull this guy down and give you the impression there's a leaf there. Only the impression, and it might be a little strong when I step back from it, and I may go back and refine that just a little bit, okay? So I'm looking at this, and I'm also seeing a need for a little more contrast in my stems. This could come from maybe if I pull in a little more of just the black here and there. I have black, and I actually tend to pick up, I love to put red violet into my black just because I don't like to use black straight. It's such a harsh color. So I do like to put color into my black. If you get it a little too dark, it's really hard to tell on camera under the lights, but I can always go back and just touch it here and there with a little bit of light just to get myself you know, some movement, some textures, and I'll have to step back and take a look at this from across the room just to see, you know, exactly what the composition is going to look like. You know, from a distance, we can go back from it just a little bit. Now, it does look like I may need to just soften, and while it's still a little sticky, I can actually soften it, or I could come in with a synthetic, and this is where this Filbert really comes in nice. I can come in with the synthetic, and I just put a little extender into it and a little of the yellow or whatever colors around it, and I can actually come in and just kind of lift that color because it's a stiffer bristle. It will move that color around. So let me zoom back in for you. Sorry, I went a little quick there for you. I can come in and just kind of lift and push that color into place and smooth out a little of my texture, okay? So it's a really nice, there's a really nice, see how that will lift? And I'm just flicking it up, pinch wiping, flicking it up. Now, if you do remove too much and you want some of that back, there's nothing to stop you from coming back with your red and lightly with this brush tapping it back in, okay? Just try not to strike too many times because you'll lose the whole effect of having, I'm just kind of mushing it in there again, you'll lose the whole effect of having all that texture, okay? So that is another thing. So that is a synthetic, and it's a number 8, Global Art Filbert synthetic number 8. It is the long handle. I do like to use the long handles a lot, okay? Now, all I have left to do really is to assess this painting as it starts to set up, assess it from a distance and start, you know, Impressionism, it's optical blending. We want to step back from that, you know, 6 to 8 to 10 feet, depending on the size of the canvas, so that our eye will optically blend all of those colors together. So when you get up really, really close to it, you're going to see lots of texture. But as you go back from it, you won't see that texture, okay? Your eye will optically blend it. And that's what's kind of neat, is things look so different. I do see, now that I'm, you know, I moved back from it and I took my eye off of the piece, and I go back to my stuff the next day. There's nothing wrong with that. But I see that I do have a little bit of a green halo. Can you see that around there? To me, it's a little bothersome. What can I do to remedy that, or to camouflage it, if you will? I can come in, I'll just come in with a little bit of some, whatever's in this synthetic, and tap it in. And then I also enjoy breaking things up by, you know, drawing a little line, a little casual green. Who knows what it is? Okay, so it'll break it up so so the halo starts breaking up. The other thing you can do is totally come in and scrub it out with whatever's in the brush. Okay, see how that starts working? That's working nice. So you just can't be afraid. It's only paint. What if you go in there and you swoop across your apple and you're like, oh my gosh, I had such a pretty apple going. What am I going to do? It doesn't matter. It's only paint. Relax a little bit. It's okay. So I'm going to let this tack up, and then I will post a final picture of it with the cover of the YouTube of this video, and over on my website and social media, so that you're able to see the final. I'll probably go in here. I'd love to go in and just add, you know, a little bit of the impression of a leaf and rub it back out. To me, it needs something, you know, just some movement. I may take and get rid of some of the, if it has too much movement going on in places. Looks like I need a little bit of contrast right in there. And I won't know these things. I like to step back, like I said, and look at this optically. And, you know, so maybe I'll shoot a picture of it here at this point, and then post it with a picture of, you know, how I finally end up once I step back from it. Because, and like I said, I'll even step back from my piece for the day and come in the next morning ready to varnish, or 2 days later, and say, oh, you know, you got a little too much, or you need a little more contrast right here. I do see that we could use a little more of this cool maybe in a few places, you know, away from my focal area. And also that phthalo blue green, beautiful color. I highly recommend it. It just a beautiful color, but it also gives you some contrast in some areas. So if I need some contrast of temperature and contrast of value and intensity, but temperature mainly, I can fall right into using that phthalo blue green. Now, I put that in there, and I'm not real sure that it's the best color or hue for that, but that's okay, because here's what I'll do is I'll just take some of my green and just run it through. Okay, just that light green, and run it through, and then you almost have like some sort of impression of it through there. Okay, so hopefully you have enjoyed this. I apologize for the technical with the camera, so you know, I'll get it all posted for you so that you're able to paint with me, finish your piece, and remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you always know when we have new releases, and we'll be releasing several things in the next couple weeks. And I'm real excited about the upcoming online class, so watch for information on that on social media. On my Facebook, it's Deanne's Art Studio. My website is deannesartstudio.com. All the information for all the supplies is going to be listed right below. There'll be a link over to the website, so if you need any supplies or anything, I'm happy to help you. Watch for an upcoming, we're going to run a discount on some of the brushes that are used in this, as well as some of the colors. And if you've never used Heritage Multimedia acrylic before, you're in for a real treat. So they're just the best paints. I just really enjoy them. And I love that I'm in control of them. I just wish I could control the camera as well as I can control the paint, right? So you have a great night, a great day, wherever you are in the world. And I hope that I'll see you right back here on YouTube channel, Deanne'sArtStudio.com. Have a great evening.